There are two types of poison in a family. The first is loud and obvious, the hateful words, the open disrespect. The second is far more dangerous. It's the poison of silence. It's the quiet acceptance of cruelty, the unspoken agreement to pretend everything is normal, even when it's rotting the family from the inside out. This is a story about the second kind of poison. Welcome to Reddit Overheard Stories. Today, we're sharing the powerful story of a woman who was pushed to her absolute limit, not just by one person's prejudice, but by an entire family's complicity. To honor her privacy, I'll be telling her story in my own words. It's a story about finding your voice, even if it means you have to scream. She had been married to her husband for years, and in most ways their life was good. But there was a shadow that loomed over their happiness, a shadow that appeared every time they had a family gathering. That shadow had a name, her husband's grandma. From the very beginning, the grandmother made it clear that her being Latino was, in her eyes, a flaw. It wasn't overt, not at first. It was a series of small, carefully aimed remarks, like poisoned darts designed to chip away at her sense of belonging. During one visit, the grandmother, let's call her Evelyn, made a show of looking at her phone with disgust. "Oh dear," Evelyn said, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Every time I look at your Instagram, the most vulgar things appear on my feed afterwards. I think it's because all your content is in Spanish." The implication was clear. Her language, her culture, was somehow dirty. The storyteller just smiled tightly. Her own husband shifting uncomfortably, but saying nothing. The silence from everyone else was a tacit agreement. Then came the performance of deafness. Whenever she spoke, Evelyn would cup her ear dramatically. "What was that, dear? You'll have to speak up." Yet, moments later, Evelyn would hear one of her grandchildren whisper from across the room and respond instantly. It was a cruel, deliberate game designed to isolate her, to make her feel like an outsider whose voice literally didn't matter. Her husband would just squeeze her hand, a silent plea to just deal with it. The last time she saw her, the cruelty escalated. They were all gathered in the living room, and Evelyn began an interrogation about her family, but she didn't direct a single question to her. She turned to the father-in-law, her voice laced with a patronizing curiosity. "So, how are her parents doing? Financially, I mean. Is it a struggle?" She spoke about her as if she were a specimen under a microscope, a ghost in the room. The storyteller sat there, frozen, her blood turning to ice. Her own husband stared at the floor, a statue of inaction. The only person who shot her a sympathetic glance was her mother-in-law, but her support was silent, and silence wasn't enough. But the final straw, the comment that finally shattered her years of forced composure, was the most dehumanizing of all. Evelyn looked at her, then at her grandson, a smug smile on her face. "You know," she said, "you really should give this boy a ton more babies. That's what you're for. A ton more babies." The words echoed in her head. She wasn't a wife, a partner, a person. She was a machine, a vessel, there for one purpose. And in that moment, something inside her snapped. The years of biting her tongue, of swallowing insults, of accepting the silence of the man who was supposed to be her protector, it all erupted. She stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. The entire room fell silent, finally looking at her. "That," she said, her voice trembling with a rage she didn't know she possessed, "is absolutely none of your business." She wasn't just speaking to Evelyn anymore. She was speaking to all of them, to her father-in-law, to her husband's siblings, and most of all, to her husband. She screamed, letting out all the pain and frustration they had forced her to endure. She told Evelyn exactly what she thought of her meddling, her entitlement, and her thinly veiled racism. The fallout was immediate. Evelyn looked like she'd been slapped. Her husband rushed to her side, whispering, "Calm down," but it was too late for calm. What bothered her the most, what still rings in her ears, was that in the aftermath, the narrative was already being twisted. She was the one who was rude. She was the one who caused a scene. No one, except her brave mother-in-law, acknowledged the years of provocation. Everyone else just wanted to go back to the comfortable, poisonous silence, and that's what she was left with. a broken peace, and a horrifying realization that the man she married would rather have a quiet life than have her back. It forces you to ask, when you're slowly being poisoned by a family's prejudice, is a quiet dignity worth your sanity? Or is there a point where the only answer is to scream so loudly that the silence can never return? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.